Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I think settling into the warm weather a little bit. Just sort of my body's a little tired, but it's also super psyched. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that for sure.
I woke up with like the sunrise. It was like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And I had this really cool experience. Well, at first it was annoying where my laptop, if it wasn't connected to the charger, would die.
Mm.
And it's like, where's the Geek Squad? How much does that cost? Blah, blah, blah. And Richard's like, I think I can fix it. Like, let's find the battery online. So last night we were like taking out these like little screws and watching a video and trying not to get electrocuted apparently is a thing too with battery
Oh,
removals. I didn't know this.
yeah.
Um, and we did it. So the caveat was the battery's not totally charged apparently. So the caveat was letting it charge 3 hours, which was like 2 in the morning. So I had an alarm set for two because then the second piece was then you have to let it drain completely.
Oh,
Yes. For it to calibrate like
yeah.
fully charged and whatever.
That makes sense.
Then I put I was like this at 2 in the morning. And it was like open Zoom, record, YouTube, iTunes, Instagram, Facebook, like whatever would occupy its
Yeah.
whatever. And then it needed 5 hours before I could even use it once it had drained completely. So, but it was done. Like we did it.
Yeah.
So that was my like kind of crafty, techie foray into fixing the MacBook.
Yeah. I'm
And now I'm not
impressed.
tethered. It was almost like having a PC,
Yeah.
because everywhere I went, I had to be plugged in. So it's like unplug, move, unplug, move.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have a laptop again.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but so wonderful.
Right. Right. Yeah. I hear you about the Mac products. I will never go back. Like I know that I won't, and I'm like, for people who don't, whatever their resistance is, it is what it is. But I'm like, my heart is with Mac products.
Yeah,
It just is,
yeah.
um, like 100%. And this MacBook Pro is 5 or 6. It's I think actually it's older than that. I think it might be. I think it's a 2014 or 2015. So it's like 7, maybe 8 years old. Zero issues. I mean, they hold up like nobody's business. It's just wonderful.
And they feel simple. There's
Yes,
a simplicity embedded in the model that, yeah, makes it very friendly.
totally. Yeah. And that's how I feel about my iPad too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now I don't have an iPhone. I have an Android. Do you have an Android or an
And
iPhone?
Android. Yeah.
Yeah. And and so when it comes to my phone, I really prefer the Android. Isn't that funny?
I remember when my phone had a battery issue and like it was super old, and I went in to change it. And, I felt like, this was before COVID, right? And it's like you can hold the phones and whatever. And I was like, the iPhone's ugly. Like, I didn't like the clunk of it. It was heavier and it was like a little more
Oh.
heavy, condensed, kind of the corners were not soft,
Mm-hmm.
as silly as that sounds. And when I held the Android, it was like, this feels so nice and it's light and it's rounded and it feels friendly. And it had a better camera. So
Oh.
for me,
So
that was
what do you have? What Android do you have?
it's a Samsung Galaxy 10. And so
Nice.
it has a pro camera embedded, um, which my phone is basically a camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, look, there's a text, but generally it's a camera.
Right. Yeah. And the
How was your?
picture, and the advancement of technology and the pictures that can be taken now. are extraordinary. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of mind blowing when you think about technology being and it being 2021, which is a whole other thing. But I'm like, it's really kind of mind blowing sometimes. And I find that I have to slow myself down
Right.
because I can really kind of mentally geek out. I'm like, okay, slow down, Heidi. Like,
Yeah.
really slow down. Yeah.
I feel my appreciation in sort of the retro, when I look at things, because it's like, as it relates to digital photography, there's like, oh, let me take a few extra shots and see if I got the thing I wanted. Where when it was 36, shots on a roll,
Right.
there was like a different preciosity
Sure.
to
Yeah.
like, I don't want double prints of this 6 times, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, I
Yeah.
saw you earlier this week, and so I'm just curious what's unfolded in the meanwhile, and or
Um,
anything you want to be seen in that we didn't get to discuss.
I think we talked a little bit about the four agreements because I had just finished the retreat, the personal retreat with Janice, and we literally just finished a witness meditation maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. And one of the things that I was sharing with her is that we finished the retreat on Sunday and we've had all these delicious, yummy, deep conversations about many topics. And what I have noticed in the last 3.5 days is the number of opportunities that I have had to utilize what I learned in this book.
Mhm.
And and also my ability to let shit go is it's at a different level. And I think, like I think I shared with you a couple weeks ago that I feel like I'm transitioning into this other realm. Like I've been buzzing. And I'm noticing the other thing that I think is part of it is that the transition didn't just happen and it stopped and then it's a real gradual kind of shift. And again, I don't believe in I've never in my life believed in coincidences. So the fact that I have read this book, had deep discussion about it, and I want to maybe venture I want to talk about that with you a little bit, but um the depth of the words and his words that I felt for myself, so rich, like
Mhm.
packed with wisdom. Like the wisdom is it's remarkable. And so I've had many opportunities in the last couple of days to practice. So the first agreement is be impeccable with your word. And the second agreement is help me. I know I always get stuck on the second agreement is
Is it the don't take things
don't
personally or
take things
don't make
personally. The third
assumptions or
agreement
something?
is don't make assumptions. And the fourth agreement is do your best.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that we shared about, and the one of the things that I shared with Janice in the conversation when we were discussing all this is that I need to bring these things into my life and have these conversations with me before I put it out there. Before I, like the ripple effect of it will be the ripple effect, but to intentionally put that energy out there, which is great, but I need to do that first with myself and then it will transfer. So I feel like this has all been part of the transition. Like I really believe that wholeheartedly. Um, and so it's interesting. We were talking just moments ago about what were we? Oh my gosh, we were discussing.
Oh, I was discussing crafty tech stuff, and then afterwards it was
Yeah.
the
So the
transition you're going through. Yeah.
right. So the tech stuff, right? And so we don't. I would say that I'm going to speak for myself. Like when I think about changing a battery in my head before reading instructions, I have this assumption that I'm just going to take out the old battery, put the new battery in, and it'll work. There's a process. There's a process to everything.
Yeah.
So follow the steps and follow the process because there's a reason for all of that. And I know this is kind of a long-winded response, but I believe it's true with every single thing that we come in contact with in life, and we are working on in our lives with ourselves and our relationships with self and with other people. Like it transfers on so many different levels and in many different languages, if you will, right? Um, anyway, so that's kind of where I'm in a good space right now.
That
I'm
was
really
juicy.
I'm feeling in such a good space. I feel so, yeah, I feel good. I feel good. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
I
So
love that.
thank
Yeah,
you.
if I can reflect back,
Yeah.
just some highlights that I was hearing was that that deep immersion, that personal retreat, that deep immersion, then being witnessed and having the unpacking, right? Just like the layers of unpacking that can happen with another person gave you an expanded awareness in your week, but then you got to ground in practice. Am I getting that? Like just sort of that,
Completely.
and then trusting the process. I'm hearing you say, like, yes, there are steps to many things, but can we trust life,
Yeah.
right? Even because I imagine for a lot of people right now, there's things they want that aren't manifesting, but there's things they're probably growing into that will manifest, right? So it's like, I used to have the like, Lord, give me framework. And now it's like, okay, Lord, grow me so that I can be ready for the thing.
Yes.
Right. And I'm not religious, but like in that framework, that's how I look at it, is like, to get it doesn't mean I'm going to be able to hold on to it if I'm not an energetic match, if my frequency hasn't up leveled. So my prayers often grow me to become the person that can hold that frequency, that can hold that dream, that can hold that relationship, that can hold that business,
Yeah.
that can hold that like intent to that home versus like, give me the cabin in the woods. Like, well, shit, I want to have the character built
Right.
to not, and it's not deservability, I want to be clear, but it's like, grow me into the person who has that.
Yeah.
And the growth being the cool part, because maybe the dangling carrot never comes to be, and that's okay too.
And that's okay too.
You know?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I think of probably about a year, maybe a year ago. Shoot, a little longer than a year ago, because it was before the pandemic. We had seen Andrea Bocelli at Madison Square Garden. It was in December. It's his Christmas show, so it's like the ballerinas and the huge, gorgeous, like movie projector behind him that's got cathedrals, right? And then it's his voice, and it's the orchestra, and it's just like, ballroom kind of like singers coming out in these gorgeous gowns, and just this whole like magical, epic, emotionally sweeping kind of experience. And Richard was helping me with my coat at the end, putting my coat on before we went out of the venue. And I was like, I'm going to sing with him on that stage, right? Now, that's cool. That was my soul, like just kind of saying that. And at the same time, there was this part of me that I think of as my observer part, the kind of higher self, who was like, okay, now what do I have to do to get to that, right? And I've done this enough times, like having a dream, having a top of the mountain, that I know it's not the thing. It's who I get to become while trying to get the thing,
Yeah.
and for me, that meant going back to voice lessons. That meant really immersing myself in the instrument of voice, and dropping my larynx, not having such a high, sort of premature, squeaky, higher voice. And all that to say, to me, it was like, I'm going to commit to that dangling carrot, that moonshot, whatever it is. because I will become an epic vocalist. Sure, the dangling carrot is I want to become an epic vocalist that that man notices so I can sing with someone I think is an epic vocalist. But if I never meet the man, I will still have become that. Does that make sense?
It
And
does.
like, I know that's the game. Like, the game isn't the thing. The game is like who I get to grow into while playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, I love that so much. Yeah, the journey.
Yeah.
The journey is the meat, is the heart of it. It is. Yeah.
And the dreams are wonderful too. You know what? Like, I would totally be down with doing that. But I know for me, going from, let's say, a somewhat hobbyist slash professional place vocally, you can't fake that on that stage with that
No,
man.
no, you cannot.
So the gap for me is still grow me.
Right.
Grow me to being the woman who can stand alongside that man and have myself, right? Like be able to hold that stage alongside someone I admire. That's just like I'm just super lit up about that.
I feel it.
It's like, oh my God, why not? You
Oh
know?
my God, why not? Yes.
Yeah.
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 I am feeling your lit upness, lady. I am.
Like, come on, let's do it. Because I was talking to a content manager today who's helping me with the website and sort of bringing some aliveness to what feels to me like not quite me on the website that I slapped together, by the way. Um, and she said, take some time to understand your why, like why you want to be of service, why you want to bring some impact to the world. Like, what is it? And this was the thing. It's literally my own journey. I cannot tolerate feeling half alive. It's really painful to me.
Yeah.
I did it in my 20s, worked corporate, climbed the ladders, was like, what am I doing here? And I did it in finance and all that stuff. And so the why to me is like, don't blow your incarnation. Like, live a fully expressed life. And that might be for someone rocking it in the finance world,
Yeah.
right? We've talked about that before.
Mhm.
Might not be stepping into the spotlight on the stage or something. But it's like, that's my why. Like, I don't want people suffering in victim mode when they can be like absolute authors of their life. And I think I was like the best at being a victim. So I know the place, of complaining and bemoaning and not taking personal responsibility for my life, right? So it was kind of cool to be like, that's my why. I want people to be an active participant in their life. Like, shit, come on,
Yeah.
you know? And whatever that looks like.
Whatever it looks like is okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. I love that.
Does that land for you in your
It,
world as like a,
it really does. It really, really does. Because as you know, I'm closer to 60 than I am to 40 and 45 and 50.
yeah,
And so as I look back on all my years in my life journey, uh, and where I was, like at milestone, like at 40, where was I in my life? What was I doing? And how did I feel about myself? And where was I with my spiritual growth, my personal growth? And then at 45, where what, like just kind of as I move up the age ladder, if you will, um, all of it, and I would say that it was for maybe 6 or 7 years. It was really uncomfortable because I literally sat and waited until I could hear clearly what my purpose was.
wow.
It was a long time to be waiting. But once it came through, I was like, yes. And I am running towards it because I am feeling it in my heart, in my blood, I'm feeling it everywhere.
Yeah.
So when I knew. It took a while to get there, but I literally asked the universe. I said, Spirit, what is my purpose? Because I don't know that I realize there's something dark. I I need to get clear about what my purpose is. Because same with you, I want to serve people.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in this thing called service. I don't know where it fits in my life. I don't know how it fits in life, but I know that this is what I want to do. Show me, grow me, all that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so anyway, when it came, I was like, and I got the message twice, and I was like, okay, it's time to go with that. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and then more recently, as you know, Project Mitzvah, that's a bigger, that's a, that's
That's
a,
a movement, you
that
know?
is a movement. And like you said, if I never get to that, which I really don't believe that I will not get to it, like I know, I'm pretty clear that it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the journey, like the last 12, it's been more than 12 months now, but the last year and change, I can't I honestly, my mind is blown when I think about everything that I've manifested in my life. Things that I didn't even ask for, I've manifested. I'm like, holy moly, like, how does that happen? And one of the things that, Janice reminds me of so gently and so lovingly, she's like, Heidi, you have built such a strong foundation for yourself and for your faith. You've done like all the foundational work you need to do. It's time to receive. And I'm like, yeah, it's really time to receive that. Because there's nothing more for me to ask. It's like I've asked and now I'm open to receiving. And I'm like, whew, it's exciting.
Yeah.
And it's also a little scary, but I'm like, okay, I'm letting it come in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And I feel you on like receiving can feel confronting,
it can.
right?
Yes.
Because giving has at least a sense of control. You know what you're giving, but
Right.
receiving has a little bit of a surrender or a yielding quality, which is like, oh, I don't know what I'm getting. I know what I've asked for. Yeah, that's huge. I love that. I love also too, you said something about just like waiting to hear, right? And I think of Rilke when he'd say like sometimes you have to live the question, which is really hard for people. That's a very liminal place, right? Which I also think we are in currently in our society. Like
Yeah.
the old thing has died, the new thing is still kind of wiggling around and trying to be born, and there's this middle place.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you can speak to that. It feels important to me of right, there's running through a foggy forest because you just don't want the answer and you just want to go, right, which can sometimes be my ethos, or they're sitting on the log and waiting for the fog to clear. Yeah, and the value of that.
Um, so my experience in the waiting, I think that's what you're asking about. So my experience in the waiting was it tested my faith.
Mm-hmm.
It tested my faith in myself. It tested my trust in myself. Um, it tested my trust in my higher power. And I don't say that lightly. Like that is something I hold very sacred, as you know. And it's my truth. And so, because of being tested in all these ways, and I paid attention. I was very diligent and I paid attention. And I can't say that I liked everything that I was noticing, but I was like, but this is a sign, and this is a sign, and this is a sign, and this is a sign. And not all the signs were so obvious or visible. Some
Mm-hmm.
were much more subtle. Um, and I had days where I was just like, I don't fucking trust anything. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I had days where I was like in tears, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I wait? Why, like, all these uncertainties and doubts. And I mean, it was a whole gamut of stuff. And, and when I got the clear messages, it was when I was in a relationship that was not healthy for me. So there's some irony there, right? There's some, okay, so I'm in this, and it's also bringing me some gifts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, it's not the healthiest thing for me. And it's also, there are a lot of tentacles, even not necessarily from the unhealthiness, but being in the relationship, there are tentacles that I can cling on to
Mm-hmm.
and feel hopeful about, you know? Um, and so that is where I chose to focus my energy. Because had I been back in the place where woe was me and playing the victim and all that kind of stuff, that would have just shot everything to hell. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I need to keep me moving forward. I don't know what the end result's going to be. I still don't know what the end result's going to be. I've been doing this practice for, I don't know, over 10 years, and I still don't know what the end result's going to be. I just know that I know what it does for other people, and I know what it does for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, in that journey of knowing what I do know, um, I would say that my depth of gratitude has I don't even know that I have words. Like, it's so profound, and it's so rich and deep. And like, every day when I wake up, doesn't matter, you know, what day it is, and it doesn't matter how I'm feeling, I'm like, thank you for, I'm alive today. Thank you. Like, thank you for bringing me through the night, and that I'm alive today. Because we never know. We just don't know what the next 5 minutes or the next hour or the next day is going to bring.
100%.
We have no control over that.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, and I often hear, well, it's the little things. The little things aren't so little. Like, really, when you think about the scheme, when you think about life,
Mm-hmm.
little things really aren't so little. Like, when I think about a flower blooming, and I think the color that comes up from the dirt, like the seed that was planted, the actual living thing that comes up through the ground and produces this amazing color, this smell that is just permeates, and it's natural. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
You know, like, that's amazing to me. So those little things that people are like, oh, it's just, like, no, they're not little things. Those are like, I call them miracles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like,
Yeah.
life is a miracle. It really is. A living thing is a miracle. So I feel like I'm getting off on a tangent, but like I said, I'll get back to what I was saying. Like, if it's done anything for me, it has really deepened my level of gratitude for so much, but especially for my own life.
Mm-hmm.
Because without me, I wouldn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
Without you, you wouldn't have anything. Without the
Mm-hmm.
people that are listening to this, without themselves, they wouldn't have anything. So let's get our shit together and figure this thing out, because it's really not that hard.
Yeah.
I feel like we make it hard on ourselves, and it doesn't have to be so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard so much juiciness in that. Like some of that could be unpacked in a whole like conversation. And the piece I'm holding, I was really moved and touched by was just you sharing like losing your faith in yourself, losing your faith in that higher source because people can often see the outcome. Oh, that person is doing a podcast. Oh, they're doing well. Oh, they seem to be happy, right? and not see the dark night of the soul, and almost feel alone in their dark night of the soul
Right.
because they don't think anyone else is having it, because not everyone's having these conversations where I can speak from just relating to you in that way of like, there have been times I have scraped, rock bottom, like chin on pavement, like level scraped, where I have lost my connection to source and my faith in myself and maybe even faith in humanity, in an illusionary way, but still it was like the depths of sorrow, grief, disillusionment. Um, and my cousin reminded me once, I was in a very hopeless state, temporary, but pretty deep in it. And she was like, for as long as I've known you, and she's known me since I was 4, she said, all of your spirituality, all of your empowerment has really been birthed from your hopelessness, right? Sorry, there's geese coming through here, if you can hear that. But it was true. For every time that I was on the ground, taken to a low, hopeless, grieving, despairing place, that's when I opened a book. That's when I read the Four Agreements, or Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet, or Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, or listened to music that guided me and had me feeling less alone, or basically found my resources: nature, music, art, wisdom. So it's an interesting piece, not to at all minimize the despair and the hard years, to go, wow, that's what grew me, you know, to having actually faith was losing faith, and then finding it again, and then knowing I could ride that wave the next time, right? And the ability of others to hold me, right? Like when I forget who I really am, being able to rely, it's such a vulnerable feeling, but being able to rely on others to remind me of who I am when I can't see it, when I don't believe it, when I can't even like touch the goodness, right? Like all of that, that is the miracle. So I try to hold that, not always well, when I'm hopeless or despairing. Um, but yeah, I think it's an important conversation that people realize, like, this is the shared humanity, like, this is the human condition. And like, there's human spirit too that comes through for us. Yeah.
And hold on to the strength of the human spirit,
Mm-hmm.
because and I'm going to speak for everyone here, and I know that's probably a no-no, but I'm going to do it anyway. I believe that the human spirit is stronger than any of us ever give it credit for, ever. Um, I mean, when I hear of, or I listen to a human interest story about someone who's come through something, or I'm just like, yes, 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 yes to all of that. And if it wasn't for their strong spirit, they might not have survived.
Mm-hmm.
Because once, I will say for myself, once I tell myself, and thankfully I've never gotten so low where I'm like, I'm giving up. But I can imagine if I would say that to myself, I'm giving up, I know that's the end. Like that would, for me, that I know would be the finishing. I'd be like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to get to that point.
Yeah.
I really don't ever want to get to that point, because life's just too important. For me, it's just too important. It's too um, sacred and
Mm.
special, and
Yeah.
alive, like life is alive.
It's
Yeah,
dancing us, right? It's quite
it
fluid.
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the word I'm picking up is like reverence, right? It's like to have reverence for one's life. Yeah, that might be a whole life's journey just to even get to that.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I sit every day with my human animal and my human spirit, right? And try to nurture the one that's flipping out and try to harness the one that's leading the way. And but it is a living meditation. It's not a one and done, I
Right.
think is the point I want to make.
Yeah.
I wrote a song where the lyric is like, and this was during a time I was really having some like it wasn't a hardship, it was like my identity was unraveling. So it was a blessing and it felt really super crunchy at the
Mhm.
time, right? And the lyric was like every breath is a prayer, choosing faith over fear. Like it was like every inhale was like, am I going to panic or am I going to have faith? Like that's how the day, that's how the clock ticked those days
Yeah.
when I was trying to figure out my life.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a valuable reveal, a valuable conversation so that if anyone's going through that, that they realize like, yeah, this is the nature of what it is to grow, right? And I know for all the empowered strength that I show, there's also a great deal of fragility and tenderness and like squishy, soft, aching that's also there. And I don't know that they could exist without each other.
I don't think they can.
You know what I mean?
I do. I don't think they can exist without the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. The, pla-
Hmm.
the places we go.
And to your point, I mean, I'm thinking of the seed thing, right? It's like we don't think about this as often, but the amount of spirit, whatever grows that seed, to push. I mean, if we were to equivocate, I don't even know, like
Birth.
500 pounds of earth
Right?
to get right, because it's a defying of gravity to some degree
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get out of that dark. Right, first it's like this dark little place. You kind of know there's something somewhere, right? There's sunlight somewhere. And then there's an agitation to crack that seed. There's something growing and trying to find its way through the dark.
Right.
And also trying to defy gravity, the gravity of, you know, what's above it, that, the glass ceiling sort of.
Yeah.
And we are part of that same natural order.
Right.
So to me, it's not a surprise that we go through the same growth process. Like I think the message I'm wanting to convey is like there's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
That's what you're going through.
Right. It's normal. It's all part of the normal process. And I
Hmm.
often, as you're describing that, I think of conception and I think of birth. Same thing.
Yeah.
Like the sperm has to find the egg. I mean, if that's the end goal, if the end goal is to get pregnant or impregnate someone,
Yeah.
that like imagine however whatever they're saying, they say it's a million plus sperm and one egg, and how it's one sperm, sometimes more, like if it's twins or triplets, but typically one sperm penetrates
Yeah.
and gets into I mean,
Right.
that's incredible. And then, it grows in the body. A human is growing inside of another human and
Right.
then has to be birthed.
And none of that, from at least the reports I get, a lot of that's pretty messy and a lot of that's pretty difficult,
Yes.
and it's like we're often oh, I think I'm going to use a coaching term, like we're often in fantasy thinking,
Yeah.
when we expect that when we're birthing ourselves, when we're birthing a new aspect or a new career or a new relationship, whatever, we'll fall into a shame spiral because it doesn't, like, it's messy. Versus what I'm starting to enjoy, it's my opposite of being fantastical, is like the law of actuality, what actually is, right? The not arguing with reality,
Yeah.
right? Like, the storm is coming. There's nothing I can do about the storm, but I can close the shutters, put on a raincoat, make sure the boat's anchored,
Uh-huh.
right? Whatever.
Uh-huh.
But I can't argue with the storm
Right.
because that's a whole energy leak, right? So, I mean, I'm just saying this out loud because it's work I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
When something enters my life through me or towards me that I'm not content with, of like, wow, I can argue with it, or I can kind of do the some of the martial arts where it's like you work with the energy instead of against the energy,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Because I've argued with reality a lot and it hasn't really, I mean, it's just caused me a great deal of suffering,
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, there must be another way. And the law of actuality is like, oh, I look at Richard working in the realms of the Tao, in Tai Chi, and some of those philosophies where it's like you work with what is.
Yeah.
Like, such balance in that. You just work with what is, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. I love this.
It's like it's simple, but it's not easy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
To
It's
take it from the theoretical, like how simple that sounds, to the grounded practice and how not easy that is.
right. Yeah. Because as humans, and I will speak for myself again, I'm often in resistance. For whatever reason, I'm often in resistance. And I'm like, Heidi, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be this hard.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever it is, there's something that I'm pushing against or fighting against. I'm like, let that shit go. Let it go, girl.
I'm curious, this is sort of a secondary question, but like, what does your resistance look like? How does it present in your world?
Such a good question. And it makes me laugh so hard. So, so for me, it's a feeling. Um, and I would say that's where a lot of stuff, starts for me, is I feel it in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so there's a whole process to it. Like, really, there's a whole process to it. And so initially I will be like, no.
I'm having a shadow laugh. It's totally not at you.
And I can feel the no in my with my body, in my, like, I feel it big time.
Mm-hmm.
And I allow myself to have it, because I don't want to resist against the no, because then it's an even longer, bigger process. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that hard. So, right, like all of it. So and then I'm like, okay, if it's a day or two, I just kind of sit in the no. I'm like, okay, it's a no, no, no. And then I let myself just kind of naturally loosen up to the idea. Like, I literally feel my body relaxing. And again, it's not a fast process. Like, I really do take my, because I know myself, I've been working on myself forever, feels that way. But I'm very aware that, like, because I know myself well enough, so I'm aware of the process that I physically go through. So once I feel the resistance of the no, let just kind of feel into that for a while, and then I can literally feel my body changing and relaxing. And
Mm.
that's probably another 2 or 3 day period. Because what's happening mentally for me is like, but what if?
Uh-huh.
What if you did consider this? What if this might, what if instead of a no, it was a maybe?
Okay. So like a gentle on-ramp is what I'm
A
hearing.
very, like, it's really gentle. It's really slow. It's really gentle. And, and then the closer I get to a yes, if it's that, like the closer I get to a yes, I feel my mind expanding. I feel my heart expanding. I feel like my pelvis, my like everything. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to receive. Like I'm ready for this.
Wow.
So, for example, dating. We talked about this the other day, and I can't even believe that I'm going to go public here, but I am. But I've had some resistance because I really do love my solitary life. Like I love my independence and I love being on my own. And I'm also being told from the Akashic records that he's coming. So initially I was just like, oh, and I had a hairball and I like all
You rolled your eyes and you were like hacking up a hairball,
I
and I was like, this
rolled
is
my eyes,
legit difficult.
all the stuff. As Foresta's saying, she's nailing it. And and that's been like, and that has been a little bit longer of a process, like getting rid of the hairball and like not rolling my eyes. And I will say that I'm like, so the thing that so I'm not to the yes yet. I'm closer to the yes than I am to the resistance and the no. And the thing that I'm spiritually and mentally aware of is that because I'm a manifester, I really want to be clear with spirit about what I want to manifest in a man. And so because I put it, pardon me, because I put that out there,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, it's doable. Like it's possible and it's doable. And I'm much more open to entertaining the idea
Yeah.
than I was
Wow.
than I was even 2 days ago.
So if we're talking like no hacking up a hairball and like hell yes and maybe, where would you say you're on the spectrum?
I'm between a maybe, let's not say hell yes.
You're like, okay, you're setting me over the edge.
I'm
It's not a hell yes.
right. Not there. I'm between a maybe and like stage 2, stage 3, yes.
So like between a maybe and an okay.
And an okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I'm like, you know, oh my God. Oh my gosh. This is so funny.
I appreciate you setting a healthy boundary around the hell yes not being anywhere near
Oh,
accurate for
now
you.
that'll take a while.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, again, like I said, because I know myself really well, it'll take a while to get there. I'm not saying I won't get there, but it'll take a while to get there. Um, and part of that process is that whoever he is will present himself as he is, and if I'm feeling it, then I'll be closer to the hell yes.
Hmm. So
Does that
there's
make
like,
sense?
yeah, what I'm feeling both I don't know, like super touched by the idea that you're allowing it into your field, right? Just and that you're being really gentle and kind with yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's the piece that's like kind of is touching my heart, right? Because some people are like, oh, I should be at the hell yes, or I should, whatever the shooting all over yourself thing
Right.
is.
Right.
Versus like, yeah, you know what? The end of my spectrum right now is okay.
Yeah.
And that's a kindness. That's like gifting yourself with some grace
Mhm.
around the resistance.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that you know yourself. Like you literally know the process that your resistance moves through. I can't say I would um I can't say I could articulate it that way, and I'm curious if people watching can find themselves in that. You know what I mean? Can sort of
Yeah.
orient themselves to like, oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we all have our scales, we all have our process, whatever that process is.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't even know, I don't honestly don't know when I figured this out. Like what I don't as far what I mean by that is I don't know when I figured out what my process is,
Right.
but I have noticed over the years, like the when I am in resistance to something, the first thing that I like just it's same thing about like self-trust and connecting with spirit and my psychic work and all that is how it feels in my body.
Mm.
Like for me, this is where it all begins. Because if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel in alignment, because
Yeah.
I'm doing this all the time in a reading, because I'm like, this is where, for me, source comes through me like this. And if it doesn't feel right, it's not gonna feel like this. It's not gonna feel aligned. So
Mm.
same way with my resistance process. So to get from a hell no to a hell yes, there's a journey.
Yeah.
And to be aware of what my journey is, I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling a curiosity bubbling up in me of like, is there ever times where the hell no just comes back? You live the question for a while and it's still a real hell no.
Yeah.
So it's not always hell no to hell yes.
Oh
There's
no.
there's like, oh no, that bristling, that recoiling, that whatever that energy is for
Yep.
you was a sincere lightning strike of hell no.
Right. Right.
That's important too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that process, I'll share a little bit about that process. So what happens there is if I'm like initially feeling a hell no, I will kind of wade through the weeds a little bit and check out the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And if more and more and more red flags come up, I don't need to see much more than that. I'm like, I'm my hell no was right on the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big distinction, right? Because I also don't want people to think like they have to have every hell no get to a hell yes, right? Like that some hell no's are authentic
Yeah.
and wise and healthy, and that we can collect a short amount of evidence to be like, yeah, no, that's really a hell no for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe the time we didn't even get to the topic. We can talk about that next week. But I do have a
We had
question.
a topic. Did we? Oh shit.
It's okay. All good.
Okay,
All
cool.
good because this was really rich.
Yeah.
This was a good conversation. Okay, so
Chat pack?
chat pack. I love the chat pack. Okay, so two questions.
Okay.
What is the biggest prize you've ever won? And
Hmm.
then, so let's answer that first.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm gonna say my partner. Yeah, I don't think if God had given me the keys to his laboratory, I could have created someone not the same as me, but so perfect for me, for my growth, for my sovereignty, for my ability to collaborate and partner and feel healthy and feel loved. Um, and that prize came from a lot of hardship. You know what I mean? Like that came from a lot of sucking at relationship and losing treasured relationships and blowing it and my own habits and corrosive ways, frankly, um, and inherited behaviors, let's say.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think to be in relationship with like a salt of the earth, king of a man who has a backbone and will stand up to me when I'm up to no good, and who will grow me and celebrate me and honor me and dote on me. And, um, we're both, this is why I have such hopefulness for you. We both have our passions and our pursuits. And it's like, yo, I need 4 hours. Like, I want to do my piano or my songwriting. And the fact that we can, yeah, that we can work logistically, because I know that's underestimated by people. Like,
Mhm.
oh, we both like jazz. Who cares? Like, can you work logistically with each other? Can you value the other person's values? Can you say, wow, I can totally see why you need that time to replenish? Um, yeah. And to be able to rely on another human being, gently, but with like real consistency, that feels vulnerable to me. To be like, oh, I'm messy, you're messy, and I'm gonna lean on you. Like, holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, without objectifying him, yeah, I think he's been a lifetime like award.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Um, well, so the biggest prize I ever won was I put my name in for a drawing. I don't remember the details of it, but I ended up winning $300. I know.
What?
I know. And I never like I'm just not one who even does drawing like that kind of thing. Um and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I won what?" And you know what? And it was the weekend of the grief retreat.
Oh my gosh.
It was that weekend and I had got we had Janice and I went back to her place and we were both kind of doing this program and I had put my name in and the woman was online, announcing the winners, and I was the $300 winner.
That's
I'm like,
incredible.
what? Yeah. Um, but on a more spiritual note, I would say that my spirit guides
Hmm.
are my most precious and prized prize, hands down. Um, and the relationships that I've cultivated with them have been undeniable, like really undeniable and so special. And to know that it doesn't matter where I am in my life or what's happening in my life, I can reach out at the snap of a finger, they're there. Like there's just nothing better than that. And then I've created and it. Hang on, I'm gonna mute. Okay. Um. Anyway, so and that when I feel it's right, like when I feel someone being called in, I go through my process of, do I want this part as do I want this soul as part of my team or not? Is this the right person? That kind of
Wow.
thing.
That's
Um,
such a like epic question. I'm appreciating you there.
mm,
Yeah.
mm, thank you. Yeah. So the next question is, what is the most spectacular fireworks display you've ever seen?
Well, I was 4 or 5. We got political asylum to the US by way of 14 months as refugees in Pakistan, by way of, a smuggle line, smuggle road, 8 days, 8 nights out of Afghanistan. And we were in DC. And I don't think I'd ever seen fireworks.
Oh.
So that's the reason why it was the most like, whoa, because it was like, what the fuck is happening? And I remember sitting under a tree and being a little panicked because of the noise as a highly sensitive
Yeah.
child, but also because it was DC. What's that fountain thing by the Lincoln Memorial? Like the
The mall.
reflecting
The,
pool
the
thing, right?
flexible pool. Yeah.
So it was overhead, like that kind that's like directly overhead, plus reflecting on the water,
Mm,
plus the first time I'd ever seen fireworks. Um, I was just like, whoa, what's happening? It felt like a spiritual experience with a little bit of like PTSD because I didn't know it would be so loud.
right.
Um, but the thing that I still can feel in my body is like the cascading
Mm,
kind of feeling, right? Like it happens and then it grew
right.
and then it just seemed to like bathe me
Mm-hmm.
in a cascade of colors.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, and just I think the eloquence of it being there and being the first year in America and like just all of that, was,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was little, so they looked big, like they looked bigger too.
Well, even if you're not little, they look big,
Right,
right?
right, totally, totally. Yeah, but they
Yeah.
were like, yeah, I think that cascading, I still love that energy. Like in a shower, in a
Yeah.
waterfall, it's this thing of like this. Yeah. What about you?
Um, so I can't believe we have never talked about this. So when we came back to the States, so we were in Panama from
Panama?
68
Yeah.
from 68 to 72. And when we came back to the States, my father was stationed in Fort Belvoir, which is, right outside of DC.
Mm-hmm.
So we lived in Alexandria.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, and so that was 72, 73. So we came back to the States, I think August of 72. So it would have been the fireworks of 1973. Um, and we immediately had relatives visiting every summer because DC is just an awesome city to see. There's so many everything's free to see. It's
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
And so we had one of my mom's sisters' families she has 5 kids, and it was so much fun. It was just so much fun. And I remember we had, I don't know, we probably had like 6 or 7 blankets, and we were laying on the ground and just looking. I mean, it was so, there's no other word. It really was spectacular. It was really special.
Yeah.
And I just remember like the ooh and the ah, and then reflecting on the water, and then the Washington Monument in the back. I mean,
Right. Right.
everything. Like, if people, whoever's listening, if you have an opportunity to go to DC and see the fireworks, there's nothing like it. There really is nothing to compare it to. It's really quite special. Um, and then I guess it was 2.5 years ago ish. I have a friend who lives really close to the Philadelphia Art Museum,
Mm-hmm.
and she has a terrace, like she has a terrace on top of her townhouse, and she would have a Fourth of July party, and we would stand out, like, once the fireworks started, we would just stand out on her deck and just I mean, it was so beautiful, and to watch the cat, like you said, the cascading, but come through the trees because they're so beautiful, really,
Oh,
really beautiful. Yeah,
mm,
yeah, it was. Yeah, I love. I mean, despite the noise, and it can be challenging.
mm-hmm.
Um, I love fireworks.
Yeah.
I just love them.
I
Yeah.
love them with like my noise canceling headphones.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, yeah.
I'm wondering too, and I know we're a little over time, like this notion of cascading around us. Because I think of, so many of us have like headphones or whatever, and it's like everything's stereo versus like omnipresent. And I'm just curious, maybe I'll hold this question with myself, like what makes the cascading around feel so soothing to me and to many?
Yeah. Um, so for me, I think of it as like like the same sensation as a shower.
Yeah.
Because a shower is very soothing, it's very cleansing. For me, a shower is like tears. Like I love to cry and just
Mm,
shed the waterworks, if you will.
mm,
Um, so when I think of fireworks and the way they fall from the sky, that to me is kind of what it represents in a sense. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it feels natural,
yeah,
even though it's like a whole other creation, but it feels like that same, like,
yeah, yeah.
hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Chat Pack.
Yay, chat pack. Ah, all right, I'm gonna. Oh, okay.
Whoo! I felt like, oh, are we still recording? We are still recording.
No, we. Shoot, I